Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Morgan James book launch. My name's Jim Howard. I'm the publisher for Morgan James. And today I'm really excited. We've got an incredible author to introduce you to, John Meese. And John is the author of Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business in any Economy, including this one. John, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Jim, thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for helping publish the book, but also providing this opportunity to share a little bit of the message behind it.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited because, like that title says, Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business in Any Economy, including this one. Now, a lot of people may say, hey, we're coming into this new economy because of the pandemic and everything that we've come through. But honestly, including this one makes this book
hmm
timeless. I love that about this subtitle. It doesn't matter when we talk about it, it's this economy that it's going to work in.
Yeah, well, and Jim, I insisted on having that in there, and not only the word, the phrase including this one, but also in parentheses,
Yeah.
because I really wanted to emphasize it. Because I was thinking, like, just thinking through the life of this book, that I mean, the reality is, right now, it's true, right? But this book is designed to be that, whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and there's some sort of other economic crisis going on, and someone sees this book on the shelf, and they're thinking how to build a profitable business in any economy. The first thing someone thinks is like, well, surely though, I mean, not
Not
now.
this
There's
one.
all these unique problems, right? Which is why I put including this one to kind of just answer that question right there before they even open the book.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I think, I mean, honestly, there was this thing that happened last year in 2020 called the coronavirus. Maybe you've heard of it. Um, and the reality is, I'm a traditionally trained economist. So, I mean, I have an economics degree. I was the original executive director of the Tennessee Bitcoin Alliance. I have got the economic street cred to earn these nerd glasses I'm wearing right now. Um, but I really, just less than 10 years ago, I really kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship. And so most of the last decade I've spent building my own companies, right? So I've built 3 companies from scratch. I've worked closely with Michael Hyatt to scale a company, a division of his company called Platform University, where we taught thousands of individual entrepreneurs how to build their own online business. And then we actually sold Platform University. I helped manage that sale to sell that to Pete Vargas, another online entrepreneur.
Sure.
So all this was all my background coming into this. And then when I opened a brand new co-working space, my first physical brick and mortar business on January 15th, 2020. And 58 days later, after our big grand opening, there was a global pandemic. There was a lockdown. Our business was closed by executive order. Not a great start, right? And we actually were closed for 48 days. So we'd been open for 58 days, and then we were closed for 48 days. All right, so a net 10, I think you could say. So not a great start to that business. But I started looking at that and saying, okay, first of all, I started looking at my own businesses and saying, okay, what can we do? There's a lot of stuff outside of our control, but what is in our control? And I started asking some of my mentors, I mean, people like Michael Hyatt and Ray Edwards and Pat Flynn and Robert Daniel Lappin and many others, asking them just, what are you doing? And how is your business adapting? And I realized there were some really key patterns to the kind of things that really primed a business to be able to not only survive but thrive in the midst of any economic shift. So, of course, selfishly, I started applying those to my own businesses, to all 3 of them, and that started going well. But immediately, I realized that wasn't enough, and so I actually spent part of that first lockdown period locking myself in a room to write the first draft of this book, to basically take all those insights from these mentors, from my own experience, and then from a lot of academic research as well. Don't worry, it's not a textbook, but I did the research. You don't have to really distill that down to a practical framework so that anybody can pick this up. You don't need a business degree. You don't need a venture. You don't need like an angel investor writing you $1 million check. Whatever you have right now, you can either start or scale your business. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize here with this framework and with this path. So it's called Survive and Thrive because you need to survive first, right? I mean, that's like a prerequisite. But thriving is really the goal. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is helping entrepreneurs create thriving businesses, because that's what's going to make the world a better place. That is what is going to rebuild a brighter future. And that's true right now. And it's also true in 5 or 10 years, the next time we have another economic crisis.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And it sounds like you did exactly what you need it to do whenever we're faced with this kind of world changing event. And that's what the pandemic
Hmm.
was, of course. We were at a conference when this broke out, and we had 100 people there that were now scrambling to figure out what's next. How do I get home? What's going to
Right.
happen? And I challenged them in that moment. I thought the only thing I can do to calm the nerves is to say, stop thinking of what is, what could happen, or what's going to
Hmm.
happen to me, and start thinking about what does this make possible. And it sounds like that's what you did, which brings me into this next piece that I want to ask you about. And that is that, you claim we're never going back to life before COVID, right? So why is that?
Well, in the book, in Survive and Thrive, I compare this to another life-changing, world-shifting event that we all remember. I mean, if I say all, I mean, of course, there are younger people who don't, but if most of us who've now lived through this COVID-19 pandemic also remember September 11th, 2001, 9/11, and this one event on one day where 2,996 people died that day, and that was tragic, and over 6,000 were wounded in the attacks on the Twin Towers, and that is also tragic. But the effects of that day was not limited to right there in New York City. I mean, first of all, everyone everywhere remembers where you were when you heard about or watched or rewatched or caught up or talked to someone about 9/11 and what was going on there, especially if you were in the US. But the impact was not just in the US. Over the next decade, the war on terror ended up meaning that literally over 500,000 people, 500,000 people died of violent deaths in the Middle East over the next decade. We're still right now today in the Middle East, a lot of the chaos can be traced back to this incident being like, of course there were incidents before that, but this incident was, really exploded a lot of the warfare and violence and destruction that we're still feeling the impacts of a decade later. So um, I said a decade, but I guess it's 2 decades, isn't it? Yeah. So I mean, just to emphasize that. Yeah. Um, so I mean, that's huge, but it's not just the death and destruction. I mean, that's horrible, of course, but it's not just that. You think about this every time you go to open a bank account, you sign a form digitally or in person that says, no, I'm not secretly funding terrorism, right? There's like little signs all over our world about all of this. You remember the TSA? I say remember this. What I really mean is, do you remember when the TSA didn't exist? The transport. Oh, I can't even remember. The Transport Security Authority, I think, is what it stands for. But that didn't exist, right? I mean, we just take that for granted now as part of travel, but that didn't exist before that. Countless impacts, countless impacts. Similarly, COVID-19, and not just COVID-19, but all of the global government reactions to COVID-19 really created this massive global shift that we're not going back to. And so there's been a lot of talk from the beginning of people saying, okay, we got to snap back. There's going to be a V-shaped recovery. We got to get back to back to normal. And I've never, from the beginning, I just missed that and said, look, that's not, we only move forward, right? We're all time travelers. We just go one direction forward. So moving forward, what does that mean? Well, there's a couple major shifts that happen with COVID-19 and the global crisis surrounding that. One of them is that, well, a lot of it was actually just expediting things that were already happening. Some of this is good, by the way. It's not all bad stuff. Some of this is very good. Some of the things that were already in the midst of happening mean that we've now entered a new age. The age of information has ended, right? Now the last, 40 years have been part of the age of information. This is just what we kind of just, you read in the history books about the industrial age or the bronze age, that kind of stuff. You don't really think about the fact that you're going to live through the shift in age, but the age of information has ended and we've now moved into the age of insight. And that's, according to the World Economic Forum, and I think it's correct. And so I talk a little bit about what that means in Survive and Thrive in the book in terms of how you need to rethink your whole business strategy. But the short version of that is essentially that information is everywhere. And that was really cool for a long time where you had just unlimited information or unlimited access to all the information in the world. But then pretty quickly that became overwhelming. I don't know about you, Jim, but I spend 99% of my energy ignoring information, right? Notifications, headlines, social media posts, 10,000 advertisements a day that each person interacts with. Information is, we're drowning in it. What we really need is insight. And insight comes from information being filtered by an expert who has experience and perspective. And so what that means is consumers, everyday consumers, are looking around for who's the expert on, that one space, on shoes, who's the expert on real estate investment, who's the expert on, they're looking for their expert. And that could be a person, it could be a trusted company, but they're really looking for that expert to just tell them what they need to know, not to tell them like, okay, so I have 116 citations in my book. I'm not expecting you to then go through 116 resources. I'm expecting you to say, look, I've curated this and distilled this down to a very practical how-to guide that tells you the 9 things you really need to know. And so that's the age of insight. And so that's a huge shift. We've just started. And there's many other things, but that's one of the biggest ones that I think is honestly, we're still beginning to even understand what that means in terms of how the economy is changing. But I do make some predictions and some advice in my book in terms of, I keep looking down. I guess you don't know it's right here, but I do make some advice and predictions in terms of how you need to rethink your business strategy, knowing that we're in a new age. I mean, think about it. The Stone Age going to the Bronze Age, right? You had to rethink everything, right? You couldn't just build your wagons and your houses and your machines out of stone. You had to do bronze if you wanted to stay relevant. Well, we moved from age of information to age of insight. It's a similar shift. So you got to rethink.
Yeah. And what an incredible time, right? Because when you think about it, when you look at every shift through every era that we've come through, every age, if you will, you see the instant impact of what that new outlook brings. So what do we do with bronze that we couldn't do before? What do we do with engineering that we couldn't do before? What do we do with information that we couldn't do before? So now it's that time again. And that's an exciting time. It's scary.
Yeah.
But if you switch it and you look at it, and I love what you said, we're all time travelers, but we're just moving in one direction, and that's forward.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to forward think and say, what does this make available for me? Then you can find that piece that just launches whatever it is you're trying to launch. So I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So in your book, you kind of melt down business to what I think is one of the most concise definitions, if you will, that I've seen in a long time. And basically, it's just simply create a real solution for a real problem for real people. Can you expand on that and let people know what does that look like?
Yes. I think a benefit here is that I've got 3 little kids, right? So I've got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. So when my 5-year-old and my 4-year-old are asking me how business works, I can't really hand them a 30-page business plan or ask them to go through an MBA program or show them even a profit and loss statement, right? I need to explain it in simple terms. And once I started to do that with them, I realized that that's actually really helpful for all of us, and then that's if you boil business down, and this is actually independent of the changes of ages, right? So even if you go back to the Stone Age, right? Or before that, your business is simply creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. So the solution has changed dramatically, but the problems and the people have actually not changed dramatically. I mean, you think about the idea, it's like, you're like, okay, well, so maybe I don't need a sword right now, but like in the Bronze Age, maybe that was one of the things you needed, was like, well, I need a really good sword. Okay, well, I'm a real person who has that real problem, and I need a real solution, which is I need someone to produce that for me. Now, how you do that obviously has changed dramatically. But today, I mean, you think about, really, I mean, you just look around you, everything. I mean, even my local coffee shop company, I've got a couple doors down here, Mealtown Coffee, great. They roast their own beans. I love their everything they do. They're a really great company. What they're doing is they're creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. Now, the real problem, right, for these real people, these are, of course, for their physical shop, their real people are people who live and work in Murray County in Columbia, Tennessee, right? Now, they have a separate part of their business that does wholesale and direct to consumer online, but I'm not talking about that, just the shop, right? The real people are people who live and work here in Columbia, Tennessee. Well, the real problem is multifaceted. I mean, of course, the first thing is that the people are tired and they need some energy, right? So that's the problem, is they're like, man, I'm tired. But what I want is more than just coffee. I want someone to give me a pick-me-up. And so the real solution they have is they've crafted an experience where they'll give you an amazing cup of coffee that tastes good, that you feel good after you drink it, and it's delivered with a smile. And that alone is a pick-me-up, right? They've got some phenomenally friendly staff. So you walk in there and you just immediately, before you even drink the coffee, you already feel more energetic and excited about the day because there's such a friendly staff. So that's their real solution, right? And that's the core of business. Now you take that and then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, wait a second, who are my real people, right? And what problems do they have? And how can I solve that? And the real solution can, there's many different ways you can package your products. And I do talk about that as well in the book in terms of, whether have a gateway product, flagship product, continuity product. But really the core of it is, if you forget all of that, it's just the question is, do you know who your real people are? And do you know what their real problems are and what your real solution is? I want to give you an example of where this has been done poorly. And unfortunately, there are a lot of these examples coming out of Silicon Valley where there's these huge valuations for these, super, super exciting companies with, crazy ideas. And everyone thinks, oh yeah, this is a game changer. But sometimes, and you can usually tell once you look at with this framework, you can usually tell, wait a second, is this just a cool gadget? Or is this a real solution to a real problem for real people? By the way, that's why I use the word real. It's actually because of Silicon Valley, because there's so many things where they'll put up this, they're like, this is a multi-billion-dollar market and it's going to do great. And everyone's like, yes. It's like, yeah, but are there real people? I don't mean 100,000 sales. Yeah. I mean 100,000 real people, human beings that you are serving with your business. So Juicero is a great example of this. I mean, by that, I mean a horrible example of this, where it's a company that got this massive multi-billion-dollar valuation, tons of investors behind it. They create this $600 super swanky, cool looking machine that you stick on your counter. It looks fancy. You hit a bunch of buttons and makes a bunch of noise and does some stuff. And they're saying like, yes, it's going to help people drink more juice because we know everybody's going to be drinking green juice every day for breakfast because that's the future. And people need more vegetables. And you're like, that's cool. So you buy this $600 machine and they're like, okay, to use the machine, you buy our, let's call it, I don't know the price, but let's just say they were $10, these $10 juice packs. And it's like a squeeze pouch filled with goo. And you put the squeeze pouch filled with goo in your $600 machine and it mixes it with water and now comes juice. And then everyone said, the real people said, but couldn't I just buy the juice packs and mix it with water myself? Like, why do I need this $600 machine? And so the company was a dramatic failure. I mean, I think a version of the company still exists right now. Like it was kind of bought and repackaged, that kind of stuff, but it's a shadow of its former glory. And that's where, when you get disconnected from this, when you just get focused on the cool thing you can create or the big valuation you can map out on a spreadsheet, and you forget that there are real people here on the end, then that's where business goes south. And so the whole concept of survive and thrive is to say in any economy is the reality was at the beginning of this crisis when so many business owners and entrepreneurs were saying like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Business is going to, I remember Michael Hyatt asked this in a session with some of our coaching clients where his business accelerator program. And he was saying that he said, well, let me just ask you this. Do your clients have more problems or less problems than 3 months ago? And I was like, well, yeah, everybody's got more problems, different problems, but more problems. It's like, okay, great. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. In fact, you need to learn to love problems, not to create them, please, but they exist. And so embrace them and then solve them. I mean, and that's why entrepreneurs make the world a better place.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you talk about find your people, right? And all those problems that they have. And that's oftentimes where we see businesses fail. And as you illustrate it, you make a great product, but if that idea or that product serves no real purpose and doesn't have that real purpose, then what's the value of it actually? So long-term success is built when you can find out what your audience needs, not wants, needs, sell it to them as a want, but give it to them for what they need and they'll grow with you. So I love that.
Exactly.
Well, John, so if people are watching this today, and I know we have a ton of entrepreneurs who are following our books and following our authors, and this book is right up their alley. I mean, you really have, when you say that you've done the research and brought it down to practical advice, and practical, folks, means that you can get it, grasp it, and use it. You don't have to spend the time that John did finding it, understanding it, and positioning it. He's done it for you. And this book is going to be such a great value for them. But if they want more, if they want to connect with you or find out more of what you've got going on, what's the best way for them to contact with you or get connected with you?
Well, of course, I would love it if you went to surviveandthrivebook.com. That's where you can get a copy of the book at any bookstore. There's links to all your favorite bookstores, Amazon and the others. There's Amazon and Bookshop, Barnes & Noble, Books a Million, all those. But please go get the copy of the book for yourself. I really hope that you'll do that. And to try to sweeten the deal, I've actually included right now, if you buy the paperback version of the book, I'm giving you the ebook and audiobook version for free, and also a companion course. So I created a video course called Built to Thrive that you're getting. I'm elsewhere, I'm selling this for $100, but you heard it from me. If you go to surviveandthrivebook.com and order the book and put in your order number, you get the course for free. So I would say definitely do that. But if you want kind of the cheat sheet, because I know some people kind of want to like skip the line a little bit. If you do want the cheat sheet, just text me. So I'm going to tell you my number right now. Just text me the word thrive, and I'll know that you want a copy of the fill in the blank kind of cheat sheet that goes with the book, the playbook. So you can just text me by just literally pull out your phone and text 615-392-1289, and just literally just text the word thrive, and I'll know that's what you want, is you want the playbook. So I'll send you that. Of course, that's something the book and the course go into more detail about all that stuff. But if you just want the Cliff Notes, text me. And then I can't wait to hear really the impact of this book, because the reality is I wrote the book. That's cool. Books are useless without readers. I mean, it's the same thing. A book follows that same framework, right? I'm creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. And I genuinely believe that this is a real solution to the problem of entrepreneurs learning how to build a business that really thrives despite whatever's going on in the economy. And so that's cool. Again, like, I'm really excited about this book, but right now it's just a bunch of words on a bunch of paper sitting on a table somewhere or in a warehouse, right? Until you actually read it and put it to use, it doesn't have value. So don't let this book go the way of Juicero. Instead, invest by buying a copy and putting it into practice.
I love it. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. So all you guys out there, you need to get a copy of this book. But John's given you a couple of ways to get connected, one way or the other. But look, if you can buy the book, read it, get the information, and then immediately have application that you can start to apply what you've just learned, that is success. And John's giving you those tools right now. So I would encourage you all to take advantage of that. John, thank you so much for doing the insight. When you write a book, it's never as easy as sit down and type out what your thoughts are.
No.
You've got to do the research, man. And you did that. But more importantly, thank you for being willing to take this journey and share your understanding, your experience with others to help them in their journey. And that's how we're going to get along through this together. And you've done that very well. So thank you for that and taking the time just to talk with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jim. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share this, and please keep up the good work.
Oh, absolutely. And thank all of you for watching. This has been incredible. John's given us a lot of insight just in this few minutes. Imagine what could happen if you read his book, went through his course, and moved your business forward. So thank you guys for watching, and we hope to see you on our next one. So until then, take care, everyone.